Hey guys, welcome to this video, and today, so I'm gonna be talking about my favorite albums that released in this year. Also, at the end, I'm gonna be talking about the concerts I went to, because I didn't feel like making that into its own separate video. So, yeah. By the way, this is in no particular order. I'm just gonna be talking about albums I liked that came out this year. First one I want to talk about is Smile by Porter Robinson. One of probably my favorite album that released this year. And I also got into Porter Robinson this year. And the thing is, when I get into an artist, like if I really like their stuff, I tend to, watch all the interviews. I listen to their albums a ton and all that. And it feels like I've been into them for a really long time when it's only been like 4 months. Like, I got into his music in September, but it's just his stuff really clicked, and I just really love his work. If you're wondering, my favorite song by him is Get Your Wish, and Nurture is my favorite album, even though I started on Smile. But I'm gonna get back to talking about Smile. Smile is genuinely so well paced. It is 40 minutes, which isn't that long for an album, but it's just so well paced and so fun that 40 minutes just blows by so quick. My favorite tracks off of the album are definitely Russian Roulette, Easier to Love You, and Cheerleader. Also, I discovered this album through Spotify just randomly recommending it to me, and I'm one of those geeks who has to save every album that Spotify recommends me, and then I listen to it. So yeah, it was basically in like a, you'll like this section, and I listened to the first few seconds because I was busy at the time, but I still checked it, and I listened to the first few seconds of Knock Yourself Out, heard the chiptune-esque opening, and was like, I think I'm gonna like this, so I saved it for later, and then I listened to it in full, and it clicked. I think it's probably the quickest I've gotten into an artist. And to go a little off topic, when I listened to Worlds for the first time, it felt so nostalgic, even though I just then had been listening to that album. And I think it was because it kind of reminded me of the earlier 2010s EDM that I used to listen to a lot, and it just felt nostalgic in that way. I mean, the album did come out in 2014. Also, getting to the song Goodbye to a World, which I had heard on early TikTok so much, because it was one of the early sad audios besides XXXTentacion songs and stuff like that. And yeah, I was listening to it, and I just, when you hear a song a lot but you don't know the name of it or anything like that, and then one day you listen to that song and it you have that moment where you're like, holy shit, I recognize this. That's basically what happened. So yeah, Smile is probably my favorite album of the year. And now to move to just the random assorted list of stuff. So starting with Blood Incantation's Absolute Elsewhere. I love the mixture of just borderline ambient and death metal, and I just love the overall space theme of the whole project. There's a good ass synth solo in one of the songs, and also the album art is sick, and they made this really cool purple tie-dye long sleeve that I bought. Also, this album is what got me into Blood Incantation. I had heard of them before through their album Hidden History of the Human Race, and I just never really got to listening to them. And then this album came out, and I was just like, fuck it, and I listened to it, and I loved it. And I could have heard it live if it weren't for the fact that the show they did was 18 plus. A lot of artists I like have been doing that, and really sucks because I'm 15. But I've heard it's more of a venue thing than a band thing. One common place that keeps doing it is Fine Line. Anyways, Absolute Elsewhere is a good-ass album, and I highly recommend you listen to it. I really like Little Texas's album, Need for Speed. Now, the reason why I got into this album and into Little Texas was actually really funny. So, I was doing a script, and hopefully I can record this script sometime, about inaccessible music genres and up-tempo hardstyle, and in order to not make myself look like a dumbass about a genre that I barely knew about, I was watching a Little Texas live performance. It was the DEF CON 1 performance, and I was just like, I actually vibe with this. It is filled with some of the craziest stuff I've heard. But that's the main reason why I like this album. It's just filled with a bunch of crazy shit, and I like it. And now to go mainstream a little bit, Chromacopia by Tyler, the Creator. Never have I been so hyped for something in such a short amount of period of time. It was about a week and a half, I think, from the announcement to the release. And of course I got the CD and the vinyl record, which the vinyl record is going for a lot right now. And when I listened to it, it was really good, and also it released in the morning, so I woke up at like 5 and then listened to the entire thing and still had about 2 hours of my morning before school started. Of course I didn't have to wake up that early, but it was just, I was hyped. Next is Brat by Charlie XCX, and I'm meaning both the original and the remixes. I definitely liked the original album a lot more, but the remixes were pretty fun. I like Von Dutch, Apple, and 365. 365, I think, is the first time in a while that I've heard a like 303 or acid synth in a mainstream song. Or who knows, I probably just wasn't looking hard enough. But anyways, and then the remix album came out. I think my favorite remix is the 365 remix with Shy Girl. And I think my other two favorites are Guess featuring Billie Eilish and Mean Girls featuring Julie and Casablancas. Last, I guess, mainstream one. I hate saying mainstream, it sounds so weird. Anyways, Billie Eilish has hit me hard and soft. Good album. Alright, now back to, I want to call it obscure. I'm not one of those people. Anyways, September 23rd by William Pasinski. Even though it's a one-song piece, but that piece itself is 40 minutes long, I'm counting it as an album. It is really good. I love it. I was really excited for it. I got the CD of it. He's just an ambient inspiration for me for like making ambient music, and this album is really good. I love William Pasinski's stuff, and I was really excited for this, and when it came out, I was not disappointed. I listened to the whole thing, one sitting. That sounds like it was a challenge, but it wasn't. It was really fun. And while I'm talking about ambient, I'm just going to mention Aphex Twin's expanded version of Selected Ambient Works 2. It came out this year. I was pretty excited for it. I went to a listening party of it at Electric Fetus, which is the record store I go to a lot. I even got the album on vinyl 3 days early, and the CD that I pre-ordered back in June when the album was announced arrived 4 days after release. But yeah, I'm not really going to go in depth and put it in my favorite albums of this year category because it's a re-release, even though there's new songs in it, and the new songs in it are really good and I love them. It's a re-release. And now for a completely different release, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To. Definitely one of my favorite albums of this year. Don't Reach For Me, Piece by Piece, and Blinding Faith are definitely my favorites. I was so hyped for this album ever since the first single, Blinding Faith, came out. And it was definitely worth the wait. Also in the same ballpark, Speed's Only One Mode. I was actually introduced to Speed through Knocked Loose in May. Definitely also one of my favorite albums of this year. It's some good Australian hardcore, and it's definitely better than a certain album that came out the exact same day that I will be talking about later. I think my favorite song off of the album is Caught in a Craze. Hopefully I can see them again sometime next year. Maybe at Milwaukee Metal Fest, because that is the closest they are performing. Funny thing, the next band I'm going to be talking about is also performing at Milwaukee Metal Fest. Full of Hell. I love Coagulated Bliss. It's some really good grindcore, and I love the song Bleeding Horizon just because of its subversion of the whole album. And I also like Vomiting Glass. That sounds really weird out of context. And Gasping Dust. Next is a very similar band, Nails. Their album Every Bridge Burning is also really good, and I love just the intensity. Punishment Map and Lacking the Ability to Process Empathy are my two favorites. Okay, now the next album is drastically different. No Hands by Joey Valence and Bray. I just love how they use this genuinely clever wordplay and make the most diabolical and funny lines ever. My favorites are Busted, The Baddest, and Okay. Next album is funny but completely different. I'm not even gonna try to say this title, but this album by Big Chef. Genuinely some of the funniest and craziest shit I've ever heard. Next is For a Moment I Saw Myself as Inexorably Beautiful by Smiling Broadly. Really good album. I really enjoyed it when I first listened to it, and I highly recommend it if you're into... You know, I'm just going to give a little sample of it because I'm terrible at describing things. Next album I want to talk about is Dreamcatcher by Tuv. I loved Stop Loving Me, so I got excited when Dreamcatcher was coming out. I really liked the first half, but then after Larry, it's just kind of like eh for me. My top three favorites from that album are definitely Bunny, Larry, and Honey. And now the last album I'm going to talk about before I just go full rapid fire mode on a bunch of other albums I liked this year is Godspeed You Black Emperor's no title as of the 13th of February 2024, 28,340 dead. Genuinely one of the best instrumental pieces I have ever heard, and as the Fader brilliantly put it, it is grand and heartbreaking. And now, like I said, I'm just going to rapid fire some other albums that I don't really have much to say about, but I liked them. Saviors by Green Day, The First Machine by Infinity Frequencies, Posthuman Next Gen, The New Chaos by Locked Shut, Harbinger by Sudden Death, No Obligation by the Linda Lindas, and The Death and Birth of an Angel by Falling with Scissors. Now just quickly some EPs. Slamtona 500 by Restrictor Plate. I'm not really into racing and NASCAR and all that, but I really enjoyed this EP. Another one is A Pale Blood Sky by Rakuyo, I think that's how you pronounce it. Rakuyo or Rakuyo, I am sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, feel free to correct me, is a band formed by one of, or maybe both of the members of Bajelvin. Bajelvin is a cybergrind duo from my home state, Minnesota. I can't decide if my favorite track is Created in Her Image or The First Vicar. Also, I missed out on both cassettes because I was slow, and they sold out quick. Okay, now I'm going to get to albums that I didn't like or are just kind of meh about them. The first one is Taylor Swift's Tortured Poets Department. I'm gonna be honest, wasn't a big fan of it. Like, I'm very indifferent to Taylor Swift's music, and just this album, I was just kind of about it. I liked Fortnite, mainly because of Post Malone. Next is Like All Before You by The Voids. Now, I really don't know much about The Voids, and I've only really listened to like half of Tyranny and the 2 songs Julian was on with Daft Punk. And I just thought, why not give the album a shot, and I did not like it. To describe my reaction, it was practically this image, and also the fact that they used AI-generated art, just ugh. Another one is Popular Monster by Falling in Reverse. That one was just a stinker. First off, 7 of the 11 tracks in the album were already released singles, one literally being half a decade old. Genuinely an insufferable album to listen to, especially Bad Guy. I think the only, 3 songs that I consider pretty decent are Ronald, Watch the World Burn, and All My Life. Besides that, I think practically this entire album is just stinkers. God, Ronnie needs some court-mandated anger management. That album and the last one I'm going to be talking about are probably the only ones that I genuinely disliked and hated. And of course, the last album is The Death of Slim Shady by Eminem. I unfortunately listened to this album all the way through. I stayed up late because I was excited because Houdini was really good. Toby was mid as hell, but still kind of good. Like, I get it was a concept album, but it was just so ass, and the way it communicated its concept was terrible. You wanna cancel me, yeah, Gen Z me, bro? That line genuinely made me want to rip my headphones off, and I did. At the very end of it, I just took my headphones off and just pondered the heaping pile of shit I had just listened to. I think one of the only really clever things in that album was the line about P. Diddy, and also Houdini was a pretty good song, like I said. Genuinely the worst album of this year to me. Going on a much lighter note, I'm going to talk about the concert that I went to this year. Now, the first concert I went to this year was Beartooth in March. It was in Myth, so it was very closely packed together, and I did not get much pictures and videos because I was genuinely in awe that I was so close to Caleb Shomo. Also, it was my first show where I was in the pit, so I was standing the entire time and my legs were jelly after that. I have definitely built up an immunity since then. Then about a week later, I saw Avenged Sevenfold in Iowa. Now, the reason why I went out of state was because it was the closest show they were doing. It was a pretty bizarre lineup they had. It was first Sullivan King, who is full on dubstep, and then they had Poppy next, and then it was Avenged Sevenfold. Had a blast. They played Shepherd of Fire, which I was really bummed they didn't play the first time I saw them, and then I got really excited when they played Shepherd of Fire, obviously. And then they played Cosmic, and hearing that live was just amazing, but then I also had the impending dread because I knew that that was the last song. Then fast forward to May, it was Knocked Loose with Speed, Show Me the Body, and Loathe. Phenomenal show. Also, it was my first time seeing a Wall of Death in person. Now fast forward to August, and I think it's crazy because these tickets were bought months apart, yet these two concerts were like a day apart. First was Green Day. Green Day was like a full-on bucket list band for me. I think the only thing that was a shame was because it was played in Target Field, which is a baseball field. I was very far away, but still enjoyed the show. And then a day later, it was Metallica. It was the day that Ice Nine Kills was also playing. Shame they didn't play Funeral Arrangements, which is my favorite song by them, but I might be seeing them in March this year, so don't really mind that. Also, the setlist felt very curated, the Metallica setlist, because it somehow hit almost every song I wanted to hear live by them, like Wherever I May Roam, Battery, One. Also, one of the crazy things was they were originally going to play Blackened instead of Battery, and like sometime during that show I made some remark about Battery, like the song, and then they played it, which took me by total surprise. Then in September one day, one of my friends went up to me and was like, hey, my uncle dropped out of the Megadeth show I'm going to. Do you want to come with? So I saw Megadeth, and also Mudvayne was on the show too. It was really cool. And then not long later, he and his girlfriend brought me to a Dying Fetus concert. So I saw Vomit Forth. Vomit Forth was sick. They had a wall of death within the first band. And then it was, I think, Angel Maker was next. Angel Maker was sick. That's where I also learned that Angel Maker is, I think, a 6-piece band. I didn't know that. Got to hear Leech, which is one of my favorite deathcore songs of all time. And then it was Spite. Spite was sick. Then it was Dying Fetus. They were awesome. And then Black Dahlia Murder was after them, but we were all hungry and tired, so we hit up Culver's and then went home. And by the way, this is just half of the craziest string of concerts I've been to, because about 2 weeks later, I saw Lorna Shore with Whitechapel, Kublai Khan, and Sangasugabog. When I saw that tour announcement, I was in the middle of advisory at my high school, and I'm just like, on my phone, because I'm bored, because it's like a break time type thing, and I see the set list, and I didn't make any noise, but my eyes just widened. I was like, in my mind, I was just like, holy shit. Then on the 5th, I saw Knocked Loose for the second time. The second time around, it was in the Armory. The first time I saw them, it was at Fillmore. And if you're in Minnesota, you know the difference between those two venues. But I'm so glad they chose the Armory, because this time they had pyro and all this cool shit. And the opening bands were awesome. Drain was definitely my favorite of the openers. I bought a long sleeve from them and then realized later one of the sleeves said this. So glad I realized it then, because I was about to wear it to school. And then the funniest thing, not even a week later, 6 days later, I saw Billie Eilish. I genuinely think that is the funniest trail of bands that I've ever seen. Going from Dying Fetus to Lorna Shore to Knocked Loose to Billie Eilish. It was at XL Energy Center, so the sound was great and the view was so good. I mean, look at these pictures. I was so close to stage. And then my last concert of this year was crazy. It's almost like an end with a bang situation. So there was a show called the Twin Cities Hardcore Toy Drive. Genuinely one of the greatest shows I've been to. It was for a great cause. All the money went to the toy drive, and if you came in with a toy, you got like $20 off of the initial fee of $30 to get in. And there were apparently some people who came with $30, still gave the $30, and also donated toys, which is amazing. They filled 2 10-foot long tables full of toys that were all donated, and it was awesome. Also, there were 17 bands performing. I went with the same 2 friends that I went to Megadeth and Dying Fetus with. One of them ended up leaving, which was completely fine. It was because he was sick. So still, the rest of us still enjoyed the show, and it was so fun. Also, within the second band, someone was like scrambling out of the venue and they had like a bloody nose. And like I said, this was the second band in. Also, during the band Chain of Hatred, someone got their nose broken. Also, I picked up quite a bit of merch from that show, because these were smaller bands, which meant merch was actually decent prices. The venue was handing out free shirts to the first few people that was coming in, so I got a free shirt, and then plus the shirt I bought, it was a Chain of Hatred shirt, and I also bought the Chain of Hostility split cassette, and also All of God's Children's cassette. and also got some stickers from them. It was sick. Also, I am going to see Chain of Hatred and All of God's Children in January, which is actually not too far from now. So yeah, that's it for concerts I went to this year. So yeah, I successfully rambled about music for 20-something minutes. Anyways, hope you liked this video, and goodbye.